Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 101. Silence. That is a deafening silence. And why is it silent? Because Dave is not here. That's basically the primary reason that we're silent, is because Dave is not here. He had quote-unquote meetings all day, and he couldn't make time for the Social Engineer podcast for yet another month. For those of you who haven't heard yet, Michelle has also moved on to a new adventure. So she's on doing some other things. You can still find her on Twitter at Sultry Asian. And Ping is off on a vacation. So I would say I'm all by my lonesome, but I'm not. I have brought in the reserves. We have brought in the saving reserves, which is Kat Murdoch. Hey, Kat, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
This is Kat's first podcast with us, but she's been working with Social Engineer for a little while now. We thought we'd bring someone else in from the team to help us out on this podcast because it's quite a fascinating one. We can always use another intelligent mind, or maybe not another. Maybe we can use an intelligent mind since I'm the only other one here. So we'll need some intelligence to make this work.
Flattered.
Possibly. Maybe. Okay, so what do we have going on? Let's see. It's cold as heck here. Like really cold. Like -15 cold. Terrible. Awful. Bad. You're not with us, Kat?
I am with you, but I'm not cold.
Oh, okay.
I'm it's pretty lovely here, actually.
Lovely? See, I always think of Colorado as being colder than where I live.
No, it's really rarely not, especially in the Denver metro area. Even when it's 30, there's no humidity, so if it's sunny, you feel fine. And it's overcast and 50, so it's kind of nice. Can't complain.
I'm a little jealous, I have to say.
Sorry, I would take your
Never would have thought those words would come out. No, you wouldn't, because our snow is covered in -15-degree wind chill.
Fair. That is less appealing.
Yes, that is much less appealing. You can't even be outside in this kind of cold because it hurts. But that is not what we're here to talk about. So we have an interesting topic this month. Normally, we try to take someone that is not in our industry, like last month, Mr. Lucky Yates, and bring him onto the podcast and talk about his career and see what we can learn about human decision-making from a different career path. Well, this month, we have a really interesting guest, and that is, you may know him through his nickname, which he used to call himself CosmoTheGod. He's part of a hacktivist group called UGNazi. And they did a lot of damage back in the day, but then Cosmo decided to quit the hacktivist life, reform, and turn his skills towards doing some good things. And just last week, he did something really, really good with his skills. So we wanted to have him on the podcast to talk about some of the things that he did in the past using social engineering, that maybe we can learn how we can protect ourselves from those attacks, as well as seeing how someone could reform and use these skills for some really, really positive things. We are back with our guest, Eric, or formerly known as Cosmo. How are you?
Doing well.
How are you enjoying the weather out west?
It's actually pretty hot out here.
Is it? See, I'm in -15, and Kat's in like 50 degrees, and you're in a hot area. So I'm kind of like a little ticked off right now.
Yeah, I'm out in the mountains now in California. Recently moved from Hollywood.
Every time I go out to California, like I went to San Diego, and it's just always beautiful. It's like the perfect weather every time. So, yeah, I think I live in the wrong area.
Beautiful, but it's extremely hot out here.
So, anyhow, Eric, I wanted to kind of have you on the show because I thought this would be an interesting topic. Our podcast generally focuses on someone not in the SE field and then learns about how they use a skill in their field, and then we try to apply it to social engineering. But for those who may not know you, Eric, or even your nickname, Cosmo, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your history. How did you get started in social engineering?
Well, I started out on Xbox when I was like 13 years old, and I played like competitively. And one day I was actually like knocked offline, like a DDoS attack on Xbox, and I wanted to learn how to do it. So I asked around and I actually found out how to do it. And I was 13 years old, just DDoSing people, trying to win tournaments, and I would knock them offline and win money in tournaments that way.
That's an interesting thing. So you picked up DDoSing and then automatically went to using it to win money.
Yeah, and then how I got into social engineering is actually funny. So on Xbox, you have like a username like the same as Twitter. So like CosmoTheGod. And then there's somebody like that just has God. There's people that would take gamer tags, that's what they're called, not a username, such as like God, but you would have to call up Microsoft themselves and have to social engineer them, right? So I masterminded how to do that. I actually got Microsoft's tool for Xbox at one point when I was 14. And I was also arrested for doing that stuff when I was 14, but that's where I started.
So you got arrested for messing around with Microsoft and SEing them. Did that stop you, or did you continue?
It didn't stop me at all. It taught me the art of social engineering and how easy it is. Basically, everybody's vulnerable to social engineering. It taught me that.
And so then a little while later, how much later you got in contact with the hacktivist group UGNazi?
That would be in 2012. So I was still on Xbox, and then I got invited to a Skype group with one of my friends, Predator. He's in prison now for carding and hacking and all that. But Josh the God was in there, and he introduced me to this guy. He's in prison now too for UG and something called expose.su. And I talked to them for a little bit, and Josh the God kept in contact with me and just invited me into like Skype groups every once now and then. And I actually ended up doing some hacks with them. And the first hack I did was WHMCS, and that was through social engineering their host, HostGator. And how I did that was I looked up their whois, found the owner's name, and then I contacted HostGator and said, "Hey, I'm Matt, and I need to reset my control panel password." And they said, "Okay, just verify the address, and now we need to verify the last 4 digits of your credit card." So how I got the last 4 digits of the credit card is I did the same thing, and I called up Amazon because I found out he had an Amazon account, and I gave them the name and address on file and the phone number. And then I asked for them to update my email, and they updated my email, which was back then Cosmo@UGNazi.com. So I got into the Amazon, reset it, and saw all this guy's credit cards on file, and I just gave HostGator every single one of them, and one of them turned out to verify the account, and I was in.
Yikes. So it sounds like that was utterly too easy to accomplish. That's what it sounds like.
Yep. And the funny thing is, it still works to this day. Like Amazon fixed that, but it still works now.
You had them reset the username to your email?
No. So the guy that owned WHMCS.com, I had them update my email onto his account, and then I reset the password, and then I logged in and viewed his payment methods, and then that verified the hosting account.
Did you take your email address out?
Yeah. Like I updated it on there, and then but it was just Cosmo@UGNazi.com. So.
Gotcha.
So you go down this path, and obviously, there's probably some adrenaline and thrills with it, but then you get caught.
Yes.
So when does that occur?
June 26, 2012. I remember that date so very well.
Yes, I would imagine that would be a very important date to you.
The night before, Josh the God and my other partner, he went by the Godfather. They were meeting up in New York City, and it turned out that Josh the God met an undercover agent that night, and he was gone all night. And the whole night I was talking to the Godfather, and we were like, "Where's Josh at? That's kind of weird." And this was the night after we took down Twitter with the DDoS attack, and it was all in the news, and we were doing hacks every other day. So UG was really hot, and I was paranoid, but I went to sleep at like 3 a.m. And at 6 a.m., I wake up to, I don't even get a chance to open the door. I'm sleeping, and there's just cops throwing me to the floor, agents, everything. I didn't even have time to think. I was already in handcuffs, and I knew what it was for. And then later on, I found out it was a FBI sting, and 24 people were arrested that day, and I was just one of them.
So now you have a situation where you have a lot to think about in your life, like what you're going to do for the future.
Yeah.
Really focus on, explain to me that process. Cause I'm sure there's a bunch of people listening to this podcast. We have lots of listeners and a lot of young ones listening to this, and they may be thinking this sounds like a pretty cool path, but at that point, now you're in handcuffs. You're thinking about all your decisions. What's going through your head?
What's going through my head is, am I going to prison for the rest of my life? Do they know everything I did? And I even tried to social engineer the cops back then, to be honest, but it didn't work, obviously. And even after 2012, I was sentenced to probation for that. During that, I was banned from the internet, but the whole time I was actually on the internet, and I got caught again in 2013, and that was my last straw. After that, I learned my lesson.
Even after your arrest, you went back.
Yeah, it was somewhat of an addiction, like a thrill-seeking addiction that I couldn't get rid of as a teenager. But now I'm 20, and I've been doing things for the good for at least 4 or 5 years.
So what was the final turning point where you realized you gotta stop, using these skills that you have, which are skills, but you have these skills and you gotta stop using them, to hurt things. When did that occur, or how did that occur? Was there a certain thing that helped that process?
It was actually when the Secret Service and FBI flashbanged me and broke down my door. And I can't talk too much about it, but I can discuss the background of what happened. I don't know if you guys heard about Expose.su or the swattings that occurred in 2013 on celebrities, the White House.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people. Brian Krebs. Now I kind of do stories with him. I don't work with him, but he helped me pass out the information about the Kansas City Swatter, and accredited that I was a part of swatting him before, but that I've changed for the better.
So you swatted Brian Krebs?
I'm not the one that actually swatted it, but I was a part of the group, and I was indicted, not just Brian Krebs, but for tons of swattings. I can name off a few if you'd like, but
no, that's fine. So you obviously you have a pretty long record there, right? So now you change, and because maybe you had all your experience on the bad side, you kind of know what some of these people are thinking. And what's interesting is you brought up the Kansas City Swatter. This is obviously a huge story because somebody got killed.
That shocked me, and I felt great remorse for what I did, like I have for years. But to see someone actually die from it, that was crazy for a lot of people to see, including me.
Yeah, because you kind of that must take you back a little and think, man, I didn't realize it could actually get that serious.
Yep, I think it did for a lot of people in the scene and the whole community in general. People that SWAT, people that hack. I think it hit hard for everybody.
Yeah, some innocent.
It was during the holidays too, and apparently the guy was 28 and had 2 kids. So
oh my,
that could have been me. I've been swatted 7 times. So
yeah,
wow.
Now you have a kid. That's something to really think about.
Exactly.
So obviously there's a motivator, right, to now start helping on the good side. So how is it that you help like Brian, that you help Krebs, and how is it that you trap like that guy from Kansas City? How did you? Because he was hiding and he was on Twitter being pretty arrogant, and he was definitely not going to come forward with his location.
He was actually DMing me and being pretty cocky. So I was going to take him down regardless, but it was during the holidays. I didn't even have time to be doing this, but I dedicated my whole New Year's and after Christmas to finding this dude. I even put out a $7,777 bounty in Bitcoin on his head. And that's what attracted a lot of people to give me information, but I already had tracked them down with people that I was working with. But I had a lot of people DM me, like hundreds of people, people that were actually involved in the SWAT, not like doing the SWAT, but they were his friend and they wanted to clear their names. And they would send me screenshots and all kinds of stuff. And I just put the pieces together and it all linked back to a guy named Tyler Barris. And he was homeless, living in a halfway house as well, doing these SWATs off his phone, which was probably like an Obama phone, I assume.
And what was the SE angle? How did you uncover who he was?
The SE angle wasn't too much SE, but it could be social engineering on my end for putting up that bounty, because I just wanted to get people to come to me and admit their wrongs that were involved, and they did. But I actually tracked them down myself with my people, and it was very easy. Like his ex-girlfriend actually DM'd me as well. All kinds of people just came to me, and it all linked back to this guy. And he even had a picture of himself on Google Cache of his Twitter, and that picture linked back to his Facebook, and it linked back to an Instagram, and it all connected to Tyler Barris in Los Angeles. And he was arrested for swatting before too, for swatting ABC7 in California.
So now he, obviously this guy I just read, he's going to prison, and
he's in LA County. So what it seems like is it's not even federal. So
yeah, I guess we'll have to.
He could be getting away with it more than he deserves, because that's what happens with swatting.
We'll have to see how that account turns out. But it sounds like you did a lot of OSINT, or information gathering, when it came to the target.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there any particular methods or tools that you use when you're talking about OSINT, or is it just straight Google searching? Or
it was just my techniques in general, nothing specific, but it was very easy to track this guy. And that's why he was caught the same day that I released his information as well.
So I gather you're very good at OSINT and intelligence gathering, but then you've also mentioned this network that you have. Do you feel you rely on your network more for information these days, or on your own skill sets and tool sets as a social engineer?
A little bit of both, to be honest, but it depends on the situation.
Here, did you use your network because he was someone known in that network?
Yeah, because he was a swatter and he was from Xbox too. And I used to be from Xbox, and usually people from Xbox don't have any kind of OPSEC whatsoever. And I could tell just by the way he talked. His name on Twitter was Infamy Runs XBL, which stands for Xbox Live. So I contacted a lot of people that I knew from the Xbox days. And they even contacted me out of consideration, because they also felt bad what happened because someone died. And I just put the pieces together. It was very easy. The guy did not cover his tracks at all. He didn't expect somebody to die. That's what it was. And if someone didn't die, he probably wouldn't even have been apprehended, and this probably wouldn't even have been his story, which is the sad part.
I agree. I mean, I guess the thing that kind of hits me is the difference from when I was that age and we were looking at what we called hacking. It was mainly trying to understand how things worked, but it seems like nowadays kids get into hacking and it's about destruction and wrecking stuff.
It starts with thrill seeking, but when you're behind a computer and it's just digital, you don't have any identity, so you get some sort of power from it. That's how I see it.
I think that's the big motivator is like someone died, and that's obviously the top of the line bad, but even all the other breaches and things that we talked about before, I mean, people were obviously hurt in that. People may have lost their jobs or lost thousands or millions of dollars, so there's damage there.
Every swatting attack costs the police and emergency services so much money, from what I was told when I was arrested.
Yeah.
And in court, it costs a lot of money for the ambulances, the SWAT team. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I would imagine. And that's all taxpayer. And then when a company breaches, that company is damaged by, financially. As the motivation for thrill seeking and power and that, it's just that strong that when someone gets into it, they're not really thinking about that at all.
Growing up as a teenager doing this stuff, I can admit myself, you get a lot of thrill from it. When you're getting in the media, there's groups like Anonymous, UGNazi, LulzTech. They inspire people like these swatters to do things. So they appear in the media, and it gives them some sort of power because the news is talking about them and they're just in the media. That's how I see it.
Kat, let's take a few minutes to talk about what's going on in the world of social engineer. Dun, dun, dun. So 2018 is here to stay. We are starting it. We are sans Michelle, but we are, I don't know, what's the opposite of sans?
With? Oh, but like in French, yeah.
Yeah, I was looking, but I was looking for a more like, robust word, not just with.
It's fair. Avec? I think that's
Avec, okay.
direct.
We are avec awesomeness. And I'm sorry to all French listeners. I probably just offended you. I apologize. But before we offend the universe, let us say what's happening. Okay, we have our Advanced Practical SE class coming up February 5 through 9. Please, people, I'm sorry. I know I'm mentioning it and it's already sold out, but I cannot fit even one more person in there. I really can't. We are overfull. But I appreciate that we have so many people interested. But don't think it's the last time, because we have another APSE coming up in Bristol, UK, 21 through 25 of May. So that has more than half of the seats still available. So please come to that class if you're still interested. Now, before the APSEs, we also have a very special OSYNC class. It's social engineers bringing in Nick Furno from CSI Tech in the UK, and we are hosting an advanced OSYNC class. And this class is amazing. I actually flew to the UK to take it myself a year or so ago, and fell in love with the material there. So we're bringing Nick in from CSI Tech to the Scranton Hilton Conference Center in the beautiful Scranton, PA. I say that with all sarcasm, and that's April 16 through 19. And that class is on the site, so you can find them on the events page of social-engineer.com and be able to sign up for any one of those classes. Keep in mind, guys, this is serious. When this podcast comes out, we are probably very close to launching the DEF CON SECTF registration.
Woo.
So we have been getting a ton of emails on that. Please watch the Twitter, the Human Hacker Twitter, watch the website, the social-engineer.org. We are launching that, the SECTF signups very soon. And directly after that, we will be launching our a CFP for the SE Village speaking slots. That is for DEF CON 26. Keep in mind, we will also be launching the SECTF for DerbyCon 8 coming up very soon too. So all these are future events that will be occurring very shortly. Feel free to reach out to us with anything else. And if you want to check out our nonprofit website, that is the InnocentLivesFoundation.org. Okay, I think that's about it. Let's get back to the show. Can I ask about UGNazi? Like, is it like those kind of groups? Are they organized? Is there a central brain behind these types of attacks that runs it?
Honestly, most of the UGNazi attacks are like 8 out of 10 of them are all social engineering on my end, and I regret a lot of it because CosmoTheGod, we had a falling out when probably like last year. He basically like abused my sense of being young and knowing all of this stuff to do attacks for his group. And that was my part of UGNazi. Not a lot of people know that though.
So I'm not asking for his identity, but is he an older one of the group?
He's he's the oldest one. He's like 23 now, I think.
So is that the way that they were generally organized? Is that there's like one older guy looking for a bunch of younger people who will get in less trouble?
That's exactly how UGNazi went down, and the FBI knows that too.
It seems like it may be a very aggressive comparison, but it seems almost like the child soldiers you hear about in other countries, because it seems like very much like that, where they know that there may be less aggression towards youth, so they seek out young ones who will get in less trouble and have less fear because they're not as knowledgeable in the world to perform their attacks.
And that's how I see it now, because I'm the same age as CosmoTheGod when he recruited me like 6 years ago when I was 14. Now I'm 20. So I could see the minds that he was in when he was recruiting me and other people.
So I guess, if we wanted to cover that angle, then what could be done to give young people who have this skill set, have this interest, who have a desire to learn, but they're going to be sought out on these networks by malicious people. I mean, what would have saved you at that age from getting involved in the bad side of hacking? Was there anything that could have saved you?
Looking back, it's a tough question. I wasn't trying to get into it, but I started out at a young age, and no matter what, it was inevitable that I was going to keep doing it. But like I said, I started on Xbox. I didn't expect to come mainstream and start hacking companies, and then later on have my door kicked down by the Secret Service and flashbanged and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't think anyone plans. Most people probably don't plan for that as a future goal. At least I never did.
Another thing, so when I was flashbanged, they broke down my glass door, and I got a call from my grandma before it happened, and I was on my computer, and I had Time Warner tools up, like admin tools. I guess I can admit that. And I got a call from my grandma, and she said, your sister's here, and she sees a lot of guys walking up the stairs. I think it's my probation officer. So I run up like a CC cleaner and try to wipe my whole drive. And then I shut the computer, and I'm pacing back and forth. I have 30 seconds before they broke the glass door. They didn't even knock. And then I slammed my bedroom door when I saw them at the door, and I threw my computer in a closet and hid it under a bunch of clothing and stuff. And then I just heard a loud explosion. I didn't even know it was a flashbang. And then I just saw a bunch of gas, and then there was it wasn't even agents. The agents were sitting outside waiting for the FBI SWAT team to clear me, because I guess they thought I was a threat at the time to their safety. But it was a crazy ordeal, and that's what really taught me my lesson for the last time.
You had mentioned earlier the bad OPSEC of the online community, and I know that the gaming community does attract a lot of younger users. So I'm asking this from a benevolent perspective. I find it surprising that to me, covering my tracks is very important. I wouldn't in my professional world want to have my identity exposed accidentally. So anything I can do to try and prohibit that, I do. So I guess my question is to young gamers who might be in the line of sights of somebody looking to do recruiting, is there a way that they can improve their OPSEC to keep themselves safer?
My advice to them is just to simply not play with fire, because it's inevitable to even not get into it if you're already in this game, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah, I would just recommend them not to play with fire. And that's what I told Swatistic, the guy that did the Kansas City SWAT. I told him don't play with fire, and he just kept taunting me, and he ended up in custody the same day.
Wow.
That's an interesting concept, but I guess the challenge that comes in with that is exactly what you went through, is that you did it once and you got away with it. And it's like,
that's how I learned my OPSEC too. That's how I learned to keep good OPSEC, because I kept getting caught and I masterminded the system. And I still have to this day.
It's like your first roller coaster.
And you take another ride.
Yeah, and now you want to do it again. So, yes, of course, the smartest plan is don't ever ride it, because then you won't have that thrill. But if you do, it seems like there needs to be a good outlet for people to be able to utilize these skills.
Yep, exactly.
That is not going to be an easy one.
Not at all.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Kat? What can we do?
It's a tricky catch-22. And do you promote better OPSEC so people can be sneakier earlier, or do you let them learn and hope that nothing bad happens, that something really tragic has happened? So it feels very circular.
It is the chicken and egg syndrome, So I want to teach my kids. So I've taught my kids how to be safe on the internet, how to have good OPSEC, how to do OSINT. Like just the other day, my daughter, somebody DM'd her that she didn't know. And before she replied or accepted his message, she knew where he was from, who his girlfriend was, where he lives. Like she knew all this stuff about him because she just, on her phone knows how to do OSINT. Now that to me is a strength, but my job, I guess, as the parent, is to constantly push her into using it for the good.
Exactly.
Maybe that's the answer in itself, is that, it's going to come up to the parents, or to some kind of authority figure, that it's their job to help the kids learn how to use good OPSEC, learn how to use good SE skills, how to be secure, but then
use it for the good.
Use it for the good.
Yep.
It was really interesting on Twitter a few months ago. A lot of women in InfoSec in their late 20s, early 30s suddenly had this bonding moment where apparently we had all played this ridiculous game called Neopets. That was the foundation, like the collective foundation of all of our tech knowledge.
Didn't Neopets get hacked? I'm pretty sure.
It did later, I'm sure. Yeah. If you want, I don't even remember my username, but my awesome sparkly gift store is somewhere around there. But it was really happenstance, because it's not like we weren't like my friends and I weren't exploring the internet in potentially very dangerous ways. And we happened to be in this one pretty safe enclave that was really formative. But how do you, provide kids with the engagement that they're craving and the challenges that they're craving in a safe environment, and to point them toward that environment? Because for all I know, Neopets was just like fortunate that I found it when I did and not something else.
Yeah.
It's maybe a philosophical question that cannot be answered on the Social Engineer podcast. Yeah, potentially. So from a personal standpoint, what do you do now? Like, how do you stay on the good side? What is your plan to not return back to the old style?
I still find vulnerabilities, but when I do, I'll give it to like one of my media contacts, and then we'll do a whole story. And I've done this before with Charter, with LifeLock, with Verizon, T-Mobile, Metro PCS, all kinds of things.
Yeah, I know you reached out to me a few times with things too. I can attest to that.
So that's basically what I've been doing. And that's my technique of staying on the good side. And I find a better thrill of reporting it and fixing it and helping the company rather than destroying them.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Within your new role that you've crafted for yourself, what does thrill you the most? What are you most excited about doing?
Well, that's a tricky question, but I love finding vulnerabilities. I always have. Nowadays, I like reporting them and fixing them and talking with the companies myself, and then doing a whole story with it. And that's what I've been up to now. But I have an upcoming project with a huge company, and they want me to be the face of the promotion of their the next gen firewall. And I can't talk too much about that, but that's what I'm really working on for 2018.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
And so when you were with UG, you were the lead SE. Do you find yourself doing much social engineering anymore?
I think I'm always social engineering, to be honest. I think it's a thing that I have within me, but not really so much, because most of my social engineering was really malicious, and it consisted of calling up companies, and you can't really do social engineering like that legally, how I did it. So I try to be careful, because I also have probation terms that I have to obey to, and I can't be doing that much stuff. So that's why I just find vulnerabilities and report them. And I try to stay away from the malicious side of social engineering.
And that's probably the safest bet, isn't it, for right now?
Yeah, for now.
Maybe down the road you'll get some work with a company that you're able to utilize those skills again.
Yeah.
And use them for the good.
Yeah, exactly.
If you had to give some advice to people just listening on staying secure from malicious attacks, is there one or two or whatever things you can think of that you would give as pieces of advice?
In terms of social engineering, or just in general?
In general, but or SE, we tend to focus on that, but either one is fine.
To use secure passwords, use a VPN, use Tor browser, be careful who you trust, just basic things like that. But anybody could be affected by hacking, and it's a thing that affects the world every day, and it's only getting bigger. So I can't really give anyone a specific part of advice to stay 100% safe from it, because it's always going to happen.
No such thing, is there?
Exactly.
100% security is impossible.
Security is an illusion.
Have you read any of the social engineering industry books? Like It's Not All About Me, and clearly Chris has written one, and then compared your methodology?
I've read Mitnick's Ghost in the Wires. Actually, I was going to tell you guys towards the end of this. I know, Chris, you know Mitnick too. So
Yep.
That's one of my favorite books. And I could compare a lot of his story to mine, but everybody's different.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious because there are a lot of tenets or rules that are posted, or not rules, but guidelines in these books. Try this, try this. And I guess I'm curious if you catch yourself doing those things, or if you have others, if you've noticed you use different strategies. Do you catch yourself doing the same things that are recommended, or do you have different takes on a situation?
So I actually want to mention something. Cloudflare was another thing that I had got into through social engineering, and it started with Google's two-step factor. And what I did was I called up AT&T with Matthew Prince, the CEO of Cloudflare. I had his social security number, and every phone provider, they still do this to this day. And Bitcoin wallets get hijacked this way. Companies still get hijacked this way. You call forward or SMS forward their phone by verifying the last 4 digits of their social security through any carrier, whether it be T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. And I did that to Prince, and then I got into his Gmail through call forward, where you get a password reset code. And my phone, I had Prince's phone forwarded to mine, and then I got the code and I got into his Google Apps business. And then through that, I was actually in all of Cloudflare's emails, and I could search hackforums.net or 4chan.org, and I would see their invoices and their emails. And then all the password resets went back to the Cloudflare email. And I only had 5 minutes to take any site on Cloudflare, and I chose 4chan.org. And that was one of the most one of my favorite hacks, put it that way. But to this day, two-factor authentication is still flawed because of phone forwarding and SMS forwarding, and that's how a lot of Bitcoin heists are taking place these days.
I've been reading about that. Yeah, I've been reading about those with the call forwarding heists. I still promote second factor auth, of course, because it's a lot of work to do exactly what you said. So it's not terribly common, but it's becoming more common. It's going to definitely force the hand of the mobile carrier companies to become more secure.
Yeah, it's actually something I think even Mitnick was doing back in his days, and it's still taking place. It took place back in 2012 in my UG days, and it's more common in taking Bitcoin wallets now. Like, I know people from Xbox that are like Bitcoin millionaires from just phone forwarding and taking wallets and hijacking exchanges.
Jeez.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's like the Wild West out there sometimes.
Exactly.
It really is. Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking at times. The internet of things. Now that you're you're on the good side, you're trying to keep things moving along, and you have a family now, so you're trying to do all that. How do people follow you, or how do they learn more about you?
Well, I'm actually releasing a website this month, and my company is Cinder Cybersecurity, and it will be up this month, but you could check out my Twitter, CosmoTheGod.
Okay.
That's where all my updates will be.
Okay. And so if they follow you there.
Same goes for the product, the next gen firewall.
And that's where the website will be, that information will be on that website? Okay. Yep. And I think we already got your book recommendation, but I'll ask anyway, because we have a lot of listeners that like to read.
The Ghost in the Wires by Kevin Mitnick.
Out of all his books, I think that was my favorite too from him. I think it was like the most just raw and honest one about his life.
Yeah, so when I actually read it, I was banned from the internet, and it was right after I got raided, and I didn't get online for a while. So I actually did get online to read it, but that's when I read it after I got arrested, and it was a very interesting read. And I've probably read it a few times.
Yeah, it's one of his good ones. I really like that.
But yeah, shout out to Kevin Mitnick.
Yep, he definitely started this whole thing, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So anyway, I appreciate you coming on, talking about your history so candidly, your story.
Yep.
And all the things that you did in the past.
We've been trying to do this for years, so I'm glad I could come on today.
Yeah, I am too, and I hope you keep on the path that you started for yourself, and
definitely will
have a good career and make something for your kid and your family, and be able to follow back up with you again and hear some good stories.
Definitely, I will be back with a lot more.
Excellent.
This will be an interesting year.
It will. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, guys.
Well, Kat, this was another really good podcast. Different from what we've done before in the past.
Definitely very interesting. His past is fascinating, but I'm very excited to see what he does in the future.
Yeah, it's always a hard one because, I was cautious to make sure that I wasn't overly supportive of his past hacks, but it's hard to not be impressed with things when you see them, when they come out and you get to see the very skills that we teach for the good side, but you get to see, man, that actually did work on an unsuspecting victim. And man, it had some pretty bad consequences in the past, but I am glad he's on the good side now.
Absolutely.
So, but a different podcast. Normally, like I said, we're focusing on a whole different set of human communications, and this was just analyzing some guy's life history and seeing how he can make some changes. So I'm with you. I hope we get to hear back from Eric again, and that he's really made something for himself, changed his life a lot.
Yeah, he has a lot of exciting tools at his disposal.
He does, and he has a second chance, and not everybody gets a second chance.
For sure.
This guy who did the swatting, it's unlikely he'll get a second chance in his life because someone is dead thanks to him.
Yeah.
So this is interesting that Eric has a second chance to make something with his life. So I wish you the best, Eric, and a good book recommendation.
Indeed, and thank you so much.
Let's see, Twitter, if you want to follow us. Kat, what's your Twitter account if people want to follow you?
I am Kat Murdoch. That's CATMURD0CK.
Adding the zero for all.
Adding the zero.
Okay. And of course, you have me at Human Hacker, and you can follow the corporate at SOC Engineer Inc. Our website's www.social-engineer.org and social-engineer.com. I think that's about it. If you want to follow us on Twitter or the websites, reach out to us, and we will talk to you next month. See ya. Staring through the embers on the 1st of November.